The best Sooner recruiting and football news with Parker Thune and Grayson Singleton.
You better lock it up. No, you lock it up. You lock it up. Lock it up.
Hit the guys up on the Riverwind Casino call-in line at 405-329-9000. Or text the show on the Knippelmeyer Chevrolet text line at 405-651-3439.
Do it! Just do it!
Now, with Locked In, here's Parker Thune and Grayson Singleton.
Oh boy, it feels like nader season in Oklahoma. Man. Gonna have some severe weather tonight. It's officially spring, folks. Mark it down. Today is April Fool's Day. There will be no fooling on this show. There might be some tomfoolery. There will be no intentional fooling. But one thing you can definitively say, if you live in the state of Oklahoma, is that when you have your first real tornado threat of the year, springtime has officially arrived. The arrival of April directly coincides with the arrival of spring. In this particular instance, Kyle from Salisaw on the text line says, G Swizzy and P. Diddy, let's get locked in. Never call me P. Diddy.
I almost called you that yesterday. You changed the topic quick enough because that almost came out of my mouth yesterday.
We can't be doing that in 2025, folks. We can't be doing that. Sorry, not sorry. Also, by the way, I got the whole Final Four right in my bracket. Shut up. No one cares. You probably rooted for the Purple Cobras. You hate fun. You picked all 4 number 1 seeds to the Final Four. Congrats.
And they got it right. In the most unpredictable postseason ever. The NCAA tournament is the most unpredictable postseason of all of the sports.
Go out on a limb. Take a chance. Pick a Cinderella.
This sounds like a guy who wanted his Final Four lost in the first round.
No, it certainly did. That did happen. And was I mad about it at the time? Yeah. But once your bracket is kind of screwed in the round of 64, the whole rest of the tournament gets a lot easier to watch. If you pull for chalk, though, and if you pick chalk in your bracket, I don't think we can be friends. I'm sorry.
Look, all I'm gonna say, and I hope you and I are still friends, Parker, but I will regurgitate what I tweeted out on Saturday night.
Which was what?
If you watched college basketball this weekend, the Sweet 16 and the Elite Eight, and your thought was, you know what would make this better? A double-digit seed. Then I'm just convinced you're always going to find something to complain about.
That may be true.
Because this week of college basketball was awesome.
And it prominently featured a Rick Barnes meltdown, which is one thing you can always set your watch to.
Yeah,
when time rolls around.
which I didn't, because I picked Tennessee to go to the Final Four. And it dropped me a lot of spots in the Ref Bracket Challenge. I was third.
I'm probably doing decently well in the bracket challenge right now. Probably not number 1 because I got one of my Final Four picks knocked off the board in the round of 64, but I'm fairly certain I had Florida and Houston in the national championship game, so that's still alive. That's still alive. But am I going to sit here and toot my own horn over it? No, and you shouldn't either if you picked all 4 number 1 seeds to go to the Final Four. You know who picks all 4 number 1 seeds to go to the Final Four? You know who used to pick all 4 number 1 seeds to go to the Final Four when I was growing up? My younger sisters, who knew nothing about basketball. They just figured, oh, this team is number 1. They're going to go really far.
By and large, they were probably correct.
They were correct in 2008, which is the only time previously that we've gotten all 4 number 1 seeds in the Final Four.
Did they always pick all 4 1 seeds?
Generally speaking, yes.
Okay, then they weren't always correct.
Chris from Knoxville says, amazing movie reference, Parker. Make sure to dodge that wrench. There you go. Further evidence that I have seen more than 2 movies. Brian and Bixby says, Parker picking 4 1s is one of the least likely outcomes, only happening once before. Be that as it may, it is chalk.
Which is why I screwed myself, because I was like, I can't pick 4-1, so I picked Tennessee, because Houston at this time of the tournament usually doesn't make shots. And they did this time.
Yes, they did. Pulling for Kelvin, man. Pulling for Houston to get it done. He's paid his dues. I'd like to see him win a national championship. Kyle from Salsaw says, I love when immature Parker gets on air at 2 every day. Zach and Purcell adds, I took a chance and look where Clemson got me. Yeah, that's tough.
Oh, so
hate to see that for you.
Oh, so you guys can be buddies with having your Final Four teams lose in the first round.
We can commiserate together. Brian from Maryland says, dang, you guys are salty today. I'm sorry, maybe we got off on the wrong foot. We're going to dive into our subject matter here in just a second. First, though, I want to remind you the show is brought to you today and every day by Dorsey Jones Buick GMC in El Reno. Family-owned and operated, great sales environment out there, fantastic service advisors, half-price oil changes on Saturdays. If you haven't been out there to check out Dorsey Jones Buick GMC, make the trek out to El Reno. The Knippelmeyer Chevrolet text line, of course, if you're not already familiar with it, and I know many of you are, is available at 405-651-3439. As I understand, you can also now text through the KREF app. Is this correct?
I got no clue. Is it?
Blake is saying yes.
I know the app updated. I didn't know you could do that.
So apparently if you're listening on the app, should be really easy to chime in via the Knippelmeyer Chevrolet text line. Chris from Knoxville says, the Sand Aggies were my leverage pick. Make your free throws. Yeah, I'll be honest. I was kind of glad to see Texas Tech get eliminated because we can't have the Sand Aggies winning and or seriously contending for national championships. That at that point, the balance of the universe is in jeopardy.
Wait, hold on now. If you get to the Elite Eight or Sweet 16, wherever they were that they lost this weekend, I feel like you're in contention. Seriously,
you get to the Final Four. That's where you draw the line. Texas Tech gets the Final Four. I start to squirm. It's happened once before in 2019. They played for a national championship in 2019.
I was about to say, so was this whole place in a tailspin in 2019?
I don't know. I didn't work here yet, but
okay.
I was certainly tense. I was clenched up.
See, I didn't really care. I mean, I still had not gone to college. I was still in Texas.
Man, you're a youngin', aren't you?
Has that not been established by now?
I guess it has, yes. Zach and Purcell says you click the text button in the app and it opens your text messages. There you go. So if you're listening in the app, just click the text button and you can text us at 405-651-3439.
That's actually a nice move because I thought this was like some DM function like in the app or something.
You think you got game, but do you slide into the DMs via the KREF app?
Please don't ever say that again.
I can't make any promises. Hey, news today, relevant to OU recruiting. Hang on a second. Wait, Brian from Maryland says, did you guys check Toby's show today? Parker, you are hereafter dubbed kitty corn. Not a bad thing. What? Why? I need you to get me up to speed here, Brian, because I missed this.
Kitty corn?
See
that's worse than the nickname he gave me.
Boy, yeah, you're playing with fire there. I don't even know if Toby necessarily understands what that label could be interpreted as.
Reformed Homer. That sounds creepy as hell.
Yes, it does. Yes, it does. I need more context very quickly, Brian, because I am concerned. I am very concerned. News today. Relevant to OU football recruiting, Grayson. One of the weirdest commitments I have ever seen from a timing perspective came down earlier today.
Mm-hmm.
3-star South Oak Cliff linebacker Jamarian Phillips had been up to Oklahoma on Saturday, booked an official visit. I talked to him Sunday night, had the story up on OUinsider.com yesterday morning. He was really looking forward to getting back to Oklahoma for his official visit, yada, yada, yada. He committed to Baylor a little over an hour ago.
Yeah.
3 days after being in Norman, Oklahoma, he committed to Baylor. That's one of those ones that, like, you know, while you hate to make assumptions, and I haven't had the opportunity to really dig into what the rationale for that commitment, especially on that particular timeline, was, it's one of those where you can kind of put the pieces together just from a third-party perspective, right? You can pretty well figure what was critical in that recruitment, or at least in that decision.
I mean, yeah. And look, you can correct me if I'm wrong here, but Baylor has had a pretty decent presence in that area of Dallas.
They have.
So to me that doesn't surprise me. Also, this is one of those situations. I'm going to go a little into my family history here, but this is one of those situations where I hate that people will decry that money had something to do with it, because if you know that area of Dallas, I've got family from there. That's not a very well-off area. So if somebody said, "Hey, we're going to give you some life-changing money already," I can't fault you from that, being from that area of South Dallas where he is.
No, and I think I would hope we're to the point where that stigma is gone.
Exactly.
In general.
Which is the overarching premise of that point. It is weird. It is very strange, given what you had told me and which we had told the listeners yesterday, was that, he's planning to be back to Oklahoma. All of a sudden, oops, I'm going to go to Baylor.
Well, and also the fact that he was scheduled for an official visit to Illinois.
That too.
Next week.
Next week. April 11th, I
Boom,
believe.
off the board,
Yeah,
Baylor Bear.
April 11th was his scheduled visit to Illinois. So it is strange. Look, maybe they cut him a check that he was like, you know what? I'm ready to shut this down right now.
And they've been doing that at Baylor.
And why not?
Smoke him if you got him.
Yeah. Hashtag Gunny. But when you look at this whole situation, it cannot be. It's either one of two things happen. They've got a really, really good closer there at that position, or quite frankly, the money was good enough. And by the way, it's also close enough too. Waco's not that far from South Dallas, so let's keep that in mind. I think there's a lot of things working in Baylor's favor with this recruitment, and that's just the way it ended up to go. But the timing is so strange.
That's really the only thing that kind of weirds me out here is the timing. Like the fact that he committed to Baylor over Oklahoma, okay, that happens. Like we've seen it happen before. We saw it with another linebacker just a few months ago, Caleb Burns, whom Oklahoma tried to flip from Baylor late in the 2025 cycle. He took an OV to Oklahoma. That one went down to the wire, and then the day before signing day, he decided, nope, I'm staying locked in with Baylor. They were going to take care of him financially. They could promise him an opportunity to get on the field earlier than he would have at Oklahoma, and he liked what the staff could do developmentally for him. There was also an added measure of stability at that point that didn't exist when the season started because everybody thought Dave Aranda was getting fired. All of a sudden, they rip off 6 straight wins, and okay, everything has kind of stabilized. So from a business standpoint, it makes sense for Caleb Burns. Certainly from a business standpoint, I would imagine it makes sense for Jamarian Phillips, given his circumstances and what drives him. Because when I talked to him on Sunday night, one of the things he mentioned was one of the exact same things that have been mentioned so prominently in Caleb Burns' recruitment, which is he wants a chance to get on the field as a true freshman. And he did point out the fact that Oklahoma had the second most snaps played by true freshmen in the country in 2024. So that gave the Sooners a pretty strong case. But at linebacker, traditionally, it's been pretty tough to get on the field that early at Oklahoma. The guys that have been able to do it in the last decade or so are special dudes. Kenneth Murray, Danny Stutzman. I mean, that's pretty much where the list starts and stops, doesn't it? At least in any substantial manner.
And the raw number doesn't tell the full story about Oklahoma having as many freshmen play as many snaps as they did, because they didn't have them play all those snaps because they wanted to. They had all those freshmen playing primarily on the offensive side of the ball too, which, isn't the side of the ball where a linebacker is. They had them playing because of a rash of injuries that we had never before seen to mankind. So keep that in mind too. Raw numbers don't tell the whole story. But I'm going to shout you out here because I was reading your piece on OU Insider about Jordan Clay's recruitment.
Yes.
The wide receiver. And what did he say about Dave Aranda with his contact with Baylor? Dave Aranda had been more involved with his recruitment as a head coach than any of the other head coaches that are recruiting him. What if Dave Aranda had something to do, had a similar effect with Jamarian Phillips as well? That'll speak volumes as well. So the fact that he wants to get on the field, he's already 6'1", 220 as well, coming out of South Oak Cliff High School. His body is ready-made for college football. If he says, I'm ready and I can get on the field and this is where I can do it, and Oklahoma would not have been a place. Oklahoma, if everything goes right, would not have been a place Jamarian Phillips would have gotten on the field his freshman year. It makes perfect sense.
A listener in the 580 says, Baylor is wiping the floor with us when it comes to recruiting linebackers. What in the world? Well, Oklahoma's fortunes may be changing in that regard in the not-too-distant future. We're going to dig into the recruitments of a couple other key linebacker targets for Oklahoma on the other side. The Sooners hosting a transfer offensive lineman this week. That's significant. We'll dig in to that. Of course, Gunny, in the midst of all this, says, I'd smoke Pete Hughes right in his punchable face. I know you would, Gunny. I know you would. You're not alone either. 405-651-3439 is the Knippelmeyer Chevrolet text line. Let's hit a quick break. When we come back, lots more to dig into on the OU recruiting trail. And, of course, the news that Oklahoma is going to welcome their first transfer visitor since the winter portal cycle wrapped up. Who is it, and what is the significance of this particular visit? We'll dive into it on the other side. You're listening to The Ref, the home of Sooner fans.
A true Sooner fan wouldn't be caught dead without the KREF app. Join the Army. Get the app. Tell your friends. This is The Ref, where diehard Sooner fans listen.
Hi, folks. This is Larry Knippelmeyer here at Knippelmeyer Chevrolet in Blanchard, USA. Conveniently located just 15 minutes south of Oklahoma City and 10 minutes west of Norman. With all the talk of inflation, market crashes, and tariffs, it's no wonder we're all afraid to make that new vehicle purchase. Now, with that being said, there will probably never be a better time to purchase your new Chevrolet at Knippelmeyer Chevrolet. No price increase or tariffs on our huge selection of in-stock vehicles. Pickups, SUVs, cars, and even Corvettes, all marked down and ready to sell. Interest rates are good, used vehicle trade-ins are high, and rebates and incentives are back on most new Chevrolets. So hop in that old vehicle and come see us at Knippelmeyer Chevrolet in Blanchard, where nobody beats our deal. Or give us a call at 405-485-3333 or catch us on the web at knippelmeyer.com. Chevrolet, together let's drive.
That twinge in your knee isn't going to wait until Monday, and neither do we. At Orthostat, we've expanded, so you get better hours, better facilities, and the same great care. Open 8 a.m. to 8 p.m., 7 days a week. Whether it's sprains, strains, fractures, or joint pain, from knuckles to knees and every joint in between, our same-day, affordable care gets you back to life faster. Visit OuchOrthostat.com to learn more.
After a car crash, life can be hard. You're hurt, stressed, and then, when you need help the most, the insurance company doesn't care.
They drag their feet, question your injuries, and make things difficult. They put profits over people.
At McIntyre Law, we level the playing field. We take on the billion-dollar insurance companies so you can focus on what matters, getting your life back. Call us at 405-777-7000. You deserve better.
Does your business need a trusted electrical advisor to help with repairs, maintenance, service changes, or upgrades? Don't just trust anyone. Choose Wade Electric, a family-owned company with over 50 years of experience. Wade Electric has an extensive portfolio of completed projects in new construction, remodels, and service. We specialize in a variety of electrical installations like accent lighting and automation, landscape and security lighting, shop and outbuilding wiring, and more. Call Wade Electric today at 405-329-1940 for all your electrical needs.
You wanted to be cool, which led you to smoking, which led to a pack a day. Then you met that special someone, which led to starting a life with them, which led to wanting to live longer, which led to quitting. Then you heard you may be at risk for lung cancer, which led you to getting a low-dose CT scan. If you smoked, get scanned. Talk to your doctor and learn more at savedbythescan.org. Brought to you by the American Lung Association and the Ad Council.
Hear that? That's the sound of your life. Perfectly imperfect. Beating in rhythm to the world you've created. But every time you drive after drinking, the music gets drowned out. Your life sounds pretty great. Don't let a buzz ruin it. Buzz driving is drunk driving. Don't drive buzzed. A message from NHTSA and the Ad Council.
Fortunate news for OU fans today. They will get to dodge at least one boogeyman on the 2025 schedule as Drew Pine has entered the transfer portal yet again. Drew Pine is departing the University of Missouri. I believe 2025 is going to be his 7th year of collegiate eligibility. I have no idea how he's still eligible. I mean, par for the course these days, right? Because how many 6th, 7th, even 8th year seniors do we see in what is somehow still the COVID era of eligibility, where we still have guys' eligibility being impacted by the COVID-19 freeze in 2020. But Drew Pine leaving the University of Missouri. So you won't have to worry about him going top shelf to, well, I guess Theo Weiss isn't here anymore, but won't have to worry about him going top shelf to whatever receivers Missouri's trotting out there for a dramatic last-second win over Oklahoma this year. No more Drew Pine, folks.
Would you rather face Drew Pine or Bo Pribula? Because that's what's going to happen with Missouri this year.
Bo Pribula, I have no idea whether that's going to pan out or not. What I do know is Missouri does have a 5-star freshman on their roster in Matt Zollers from the state of Pennsylvania. So he dealt with a pretty significant injury his senior year in high school, so I don't know how ready he's going to be to jump in right off the bat. But yeah, Missouri's projected starting quarterback in 2025 is a guy that's been riding the bench behind Drew Aller at Penn State for the last 2 years. So.
And do with that what you must, riding behind Drew Aller.
We have news pertinent to the transfer portal, Mr. Singleton, and that is the news that Oklahoma is going to host a transfer offensive lineman. Now, we have talked on this show, and I've certainly talked about this at OUinsider.com, on the Under the Visor podcast, on several different platforms at this point, about how depth at center is a problem right now for Oklahoma. Depth at center is an issue. You have Troy Everett. That's really about it. Josh Isosa is there. Owen Hollenbeck is there. The word is neither of those guys are quite ready for the challenge of seeing the field in the SEC in 2025. So, Febechi Wiwu has been repping a little bit at center this spring, but it's really Troy Everett, and that's all at the center position for Oklahoma. That may be changing. Bill Bedenbaugh is going right back to the well, and the well in this case is Stanford University, from which he lured Luke Baklenko, the swing tackle in the winter portal. Oklahoma landed his services over, I believe it was Illinois, that was the other school prominently involved there. But they landed Luke Baklenko, Michigan State as well, they were in it. They landed Luke Baklenko in the winter window, and now they are in the mix, and I had to go verify the pronunciation of his last name, but verify it I have. They are in the mix for Jake Michaela from Stanford University. Jake Michaela, 6'5", 295 pounds, collegiate experience as a starter, mind you, at left guard, right guard, and center. So a guy with a little bit of versatility. You can move him around there on the interior. He is going to be taking visits to Oklahoma and UCLA. Obviously, there may be other schools that get involved, but the reason this visit can happen right now before the portal window has officially opened, and it won't open until mid-April, is that Michaela is a grad transfer. So if you're a grad transfer, you can get in the portal at any time. You don't have to wait for the portal to officially open. I know we'll get some questions about that, so getting ahead of it. But Jake Michaela, Luke Baklenko. Got to keep that straight now. Jake Michaela is going to visit Oklahoma later this week. He'll check out UCLA as well, and we'll see what kind of headway the Sooners can make towards adding additional depth to their interior offensive line. What do we think here?
Not even adding just depth, but adding experience depth as well, especially at that position, center. Because last year, there were a ton of injuries. We don't need to relitigate that. But the result of all those injuries was that you played a lot of guys that you did not want to play, i.e. Logan Howland, who might turn out to be a very good college player. But the first time he stepped on the field, he looked over his skis. And that's just the reality of the situation when you've got to bring in a guy that just doesn't have that experience yet and just, quite frankly, isn't ready. Just like Xavier Robinson wasn't really ready until he was, and we found out what he could do. So the fact that you're bringing in experienced depth, to me, is going to save you from a lot of problems. Also, by the way, the fact that he's played center and guard means that he'll probably be more adaptable if he's thrown into emergency duty with guys that he hasn't played along a continuous 5 with. So there's a lot of upside here. He's also coming from Stanford, so the least we know about him is that he's probably smart. So there's a lot of good here. I don't think you can go wrong with a move like this if they're able to lock him down.
And as several folks are pointing out on the text line, yes, the whole Stanford team can technically transfer within a 30-day window because their coach was fired. So it is – there are two circumstances that allow Jake Michaela to enter the transfer portal when he did, and that allow him to get on campus with Oklahoma this week and check it all out. Interesting little OU tie here. He was a high school teammate of Gavin Sawchuk at Valor Christian High School in Colorado.
Huh.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. They came out in the same class together, class of 2022. Jake went to Stanford. Gavin went to Oklahoma. Might come full circle. They reunite as Sooner teammates. You'd have to figure that the two guys that are going to be prominently involved in Michaela's official visit experience will be Luke Baklenko, his former teammate, and Gavin Sawchuk, also a former teammate, even though you have to go back a little further.
I mean, that still matters. I mean, anytime you can sell familiarity, you're going to be in a good spot. Who else is in, if you've heard, who else is in the running for Michaela now that he's entered the portal? Or is it really just OU?
It's OU UCLA. Those are the two visits he's taking.
Okay.
So, again, not out of the question that other schools could get involved, but he's visiting OU and UCLA. Those are the first two priorities. So, see if Bill Bedenbaugh can lock that one down. They need it, man.
They do need it.
Because, as we learned last year, you got to have depth in the offensive trenches.
And center is not the position you want to be playing games with.
No, and you also want to have guys that can legitimately bounce around, that aren't just pigeonholed into one position, and that's all they can do, that's all they can be. At one point last year, I think for the majority of the season, right, Jacob Sexton, who is not a guard, was playing left guard because there was nobody else that could play left guard. Heath Ozida was hurt. Troy Everett was hurt. Branson Hickman was hurt. The injuries piled up on the offensive line. We know that. You're probably not going to have to deal with that amount of injuries again. But can never have too much depth and flexibility, mind you, with some of your interior offensive linemen in particular, because you don't want to get in a situation where you're playing a 6'6" offensive tackle at guard. And Jake Sexton held his own, to his credit, but it was very, very clear. When they're walking in the line of scrimmage and your left guard is taller than everybody else, that's probably a problem.
Something's out of balance.
Brian in Bixby says he's a 3-year graduate from Stanford. Wow. Yeah. A lot of guys these days, at least the guys that are serious about academic. It's funny. College football players tend to fall in one of two camps. Either they're the guys that are super serious about academics and they fast-track their path, or you get guys that are not serious at all about academics and they never make any legitimate effort to graduate. But you get a lot of guys, like more than you think, that graduate in 3, even 2.5 years.
Mm-hmm.
Heck, I saw there was a player that entered the transfer portal last week, a couple weeks ago perhaps, that had graduated from a G5 school down in the Southeast after 2 years.
How do you do that?
I mean, look, if you want to fast-track it, you can fast-track it. Generally, these universities have enough people guiding the process, the academic process for the student-athletes, and also enough shortcuts, if you will, that they can make it happen if that's what you want to make it happen. Ronnie Crimson says, we need more guys unserious about academics. All right, Ronnie Crimson is out on any and all Stanford transfers, apparently.
I think Ronnie Crimson just wants to go root for Georgia.
Yeah, Ronnie Crimson, make no mistake about it. You want guys that are unserious about academics? University of Georgia, that's the bandwagon you're going to want to hop on.
Is it not Ronnie Crimson, or is it may be somebody else on the text line who always, obviously tongue-in-cheek, talks about how Oklahoma needs to get some more guys with sketchy backgrounds, we'll put it that way.
I'm sure that's probably Ronnie Crimson. Gunny of Stutzman Army says, how have I not put together that this shall henceforth be known as the Ebony and Ivory Hour?
That might be the wildest text that has ever been said since I've joined this station.
Oh, that's something only Gunny could come up with.
Oh, my gosh.
Wow. All right.
Did not have that on my bucket list. One-star Puerto Rican Sooner. Yeah, because their major is in basket weaving and some BS like that.
Chris from Knoxville adds, Stanford's rise and fall has been interesting to witness.
Yeah.
I will say, especially with the benefit of hindsight, I know I'm looking at CBS Sports mock draft right here for the NBA draft where they project Jeremiah Fears 9th overall to the Portland Trail Blazers.
How many guards does that team need? They have like 5 guards under 25. Continue.
But what was I saying? Now I lost my train of thought. I got distracted by Jeremiah Fears. Stanford.
The demise.
Jim Harbaugh. The fact that he won at Stanford, the way that he won at Stanford, is very impressive. Because, trust me, it is hard. It is hard to recruit to a place like Stanford.
Mm-hmm.
Not because there's like any sort of deficiency with the university itself. I mean, there's obviously not, but the academic rigor and the admittance standards are so high that there are going to be plenty of guys that you wish you could take every single cycle. In fact, I would say probably a majority of guys that you wish you could take every single cycle that you can't get admitted to Stanford University.
But it's also the same problem that you have with Duke. Like, how is Duke I know Duke and Stanford Stanford's a little bit higher tier than Duke, but Duke is a rigorous academic school.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, how do you get all these athletes into Duke?
That's why, man, like I respect anybody that can win at either of those places.
Agreed.
Stanford and Duke, like the guys that can win there. Jim Harbaugh did it at Stanford. David Cutcliffe did it at Duke. Mike Elko had decent success at Duke in his couple of years there, right? Because of the barrier that exists to getting the average student athlete admitted to that institution, man, you tip your cap all the more so to anybody that can make it work given the circumstances at a school like that. Grill Boy says, that's Travis Davidson himself, by the way, the Grill Boy, says, Gunny, both of these kids don't know about the Paul McCartney and Stevie Wonder hit Ebony and Ivory. Beautiful song. Yes, trust me, Travis, I'm well aware of the song Ebony and Ivory.
You know, now that you bring it up, that brings it back to memory.
Oh, so you were not aware of the song?
I did not put 2 and 2 together. Okay. I'm not going to lie, I did not.
Brian in Bixby says, Kyrie Irving is a flat earther. I'm sure Duke makes exceptions for people like him.
Also,
well, he plays basketball, right? Like, basketball is Duke's calling card. And so, yeah, they're probably cutting some corners.
But they are,
players.
even if they are cutting corners, which they probably are, it's still pretty limited the corners you can cut at a place like that. Drew from Flower Mound, back on our Jamarian Phillips conversation. It's crazy how a school like Sauk, that's South Oak Cliff, acquire all this football talent, but a school like Carter, who used to be a powerhouse in the country, you don't hear anything about them anymore. And I'll tell you why that is. By the way, Carter's where my pops went to high school.
Gotcha.
It's because a lot of those kids that were there when they were a powerhouse have moved out to Duncanville and Cedar Hill and Lancaster and DeSoto and also to the North Metro where I'm from.
And I can't recall whether or not this is the case with South Oak Cliff, but I know this is the case with Duncanville, and it's part of why they've become such a force down in the Texas high school football scene. It's open enrollment
that too.
At Duncanville.
Yes.
So there are guys that come from all over the metro to play football at Duncanville.
There are.
Because they're not bound by geography.
And also the private school, the private school presence in North Texas is massive. It's not like it is in Oklahoma. At least not in the OKC metro. I mean, there are private schools in Dallas that will recruit these kids out of there.
Julio on the text line says, first strike I've ever had to call on Grayson. I guess because you didn't know.
Yeah, I'll take the L on that one.
Joe from Tipton asks, will Sawchuk be a factor in recruiting the Stanford center? Sawchuk may be processed. Yeah, they're not processing Gavin Sawchuk. There are guys that may be processed at the end. Well, there are guys that will be processed at the end of the spring. Gavin Sawchuk's not one of them. He's going to be around. Heck, he's got a brother here as a preferred walk-on, right? So if you're going to tell one of those kids to hit the road, you kind of got to tell both of those kids to hit the road. And again, if there is one guy with a track record that you can bank on in that running back room, I mean, nobody fits that bill perfectly congruently, right? But Gavin Sawchuk, you could argue, has more of a track record than anybody else in that room right now. Gavin Sawchuk down the stretch in 2023, awesome. 5 straight 100-yard games to close out that campaign. Is there another running back on this roster that has had more than 2 or 3 100-yard games in their career? I know, like Xavier Robinson had 1. Taylor Tatum certainly didn't have 1. Javonte Barnes has maybe had 2 or 3, but, like, that's it. That's it. So, like, Gavin Sawchuk is not in danger of getting processed, at least not to my knowledge.
Chris from Knoxville. Speaking of Duncanville, any new news on Kevin Ford Jr.?
Yeah, that feels like one that, there's not really going to be a whole lot of tangible movement there until official visit season. Oklahoma's in a good spot. They have been in a good spot. It feels like they're going to break down that Duncanville door finally in the 2026 class with Kevin Ford Jr., but that's by no means a certainty. They got to stay the course. As we mentioned yesterday, Kamarian Johnson from Muscle Shoals, Alabama, who'd been a high-priority defensive end target for Oklahoma, he's no longer OVing, so that heightens the necessity of an addition like Kevin Ford Jr. You got to ramp up pursuit of that kid, and you got to make absolutely certain that you lock him in. Okay, a great question on the text line that I meant to get around to this segment. We did not. So when we hit a break here, we'll make it the first thing that we address on the other side. Spartan Sooner wants to know, what linebackers is OU in on for the 2026 class? Jamarian Phillips off the board earlier today to Baylor, as we discussed to open the show. But the Sooners did have a couple of top linebacker targets on campus this past week, and things went very well with each of those targets. We'll dive into that and more on the other side. You're listening to The Ref, the home of Sooner fans. This is Locked In.
Dusty Dvorak here. You're listening to The Ref, the home of Sooner fans.
Don't miss out on OKC's hottest entertainment at the Showplace Theater with acts like Boys to Men, April 18th. America, April 26th. Patti LaBelle, May 2nd. And Scotty McCreery, May 10th. Riverwind is OKC's favorite casino experience.
What's up, Ref Army? It's Dusty Dvorak. Do you eat, sleep, and breathe football? KREF is the only place for the most comprehensive daily analysis of Sooner and college football. Catch me every Tuesday and Wednesday during the 10 a.m. hour of The Plank Show as I cut it up with Plank and Josh about everything in the world of Sooner and college football. That's every Tuesday and Wednesday on The Plank Show, and there's only one place to hear it. The Ref, the home of Sooner fans. Download the KRF app today to listen from anywhere.
I'm Ben Affleck, and I want to thank you for joining me and supporting Paralyzed Veterans of America.
I joined the Navy to serve my country. While parachuting with my platoon, my parachute didn't open, and I broke my neck.
Thanks to PVA, paralyzed veterans are getting specialized medical care and treatments, the jobs they want, and the accessible vehicles and homes they need.
I just don't think my family would be as happy as they are without the support that I received from Paralyzed Veterans of America.
Learn more at pva.org.
Tired of your current living situation? Now is the best time to make a move. Interest rates are dropping and Home Creations is offering the best financing around with rates as low as 3.625%. This will save you hundreds per month on your brand new Home Creations home. Live like a champion today by calling Holly at 405-364-9999 for full details.
364-9999 Home Creations.
APR 6.508%.
My name is Ariel. I moved to the U.S. at 19. I spoke no English and I struggled finding job opportunities. Everything I have, I owe to the Adult Literacy Center and getting my high school diploma at age 22.
It was an honor helping you achieve your greatness. Now you're helping others achieve theirs. It inspires me. When you graduate, they graduate. Find free and supportive adult education centers near you at finishyourdiploma.org. Brought to you by Dollar General Literacy Foundation and the Ad Council.
My son Ian was diagnosed with a brain tumor at the age of 16 months. We had no hope until St. Jude rescued us. He's alive because of what St. Jude has done. He's here because of the doctors who came before, their blood, their sweat, their tears, the knowledge accumulated and shared, with everyone else around the world. This is how we help kids beat cancer all over.
Finding cures, saving children. Learn more at stjude.org.
Snakes, zombies, sharks, heights, speaking in public. The list of fears is endless. But while you're clutching your blanket in the dark, wondering if that sound in the hall was actually a footstep, the real danger is in your hand, when you're behind the wheel. And while you might think a great white shark is scary, what's really terrifying and even deadly is distracted driving. Eyes forward, don't drive distracted. Brought to you by NHTSA and the Ad Council.
No matter where you live, you care about one thing during bad weather: keeping your family and property safe. Scissortail Roofing and Construction is here to ensure just that. Whether it's damage from strong winds or a hailstorm, we will manage your residential or commercial project from start to finish. Call us today, 405-928-8089, or visit us online at scissortailroofing.com for a free estimate. Call Scissortail today, your trusted local roofing and construction company.
Parker Thune, Grayson, Singleton back with you to wrap up Locked In here on a Tuesday. We're going to wrap up Locked In and then take shelter. Well, I won't. We have an open practice session. As of right now, it's still on this afternoon at the University of Oklahoma. So, I'm going to stop in, get some interviews, get some eyes on the Sooners practice session, and then we'll take cover as severe weather rolls into Oklahoma. Quick aside, gosh, this has got to be at least a 2-year-old meme now. But the that MFer is not real meme has popped up on my Twitter feed once again. Have we ever discussed the fact, I don't know why this doesn't get talked about enough, that the chick who came forward publicly and took credit for being the that MFer is not real person is like very obviously not the person that's in the video. I don't understand why that has never been more of a thing, more of a subject of discourse than it is. Because she's like she's carved out a pretty large follow. She's got 332,000 followers on social media. And that's really only because she took credit for being someone that she's very obviously not. I don't know who that is. I don't know why that person has never acknowledged, hey, actually, that's me. But this Tiffany Gomez lady that said, no, yeah, I was the person on that airplane. No, you weren't. No, you weren't. And it's obvious when you watch the video. Anyway, that aside, let's get back to the thing that I actually wanted to talk about this segment. By the way, Knippelmeyer Chevrolet text line is 405-651-3439. If you have any questions that you want addressed here before we call it a wrap on this installment of Locked In. So the text that I wanted to address was a text from Spartan Sooner who asked, what linebackers is OU in on for the 2026 class? And Grayson, I think as of right now, that conversation starts with two names. Braxton Lindsey out of Rogers, Arkansas, and Bo Jandro out of Chandler, Arizona. Now, that's not to say those are the only realistic targets on OU's board because they're pursuing Talanoa Ely, who's a certified stud from the state of Hawaii. Everybody in the country wants that dude. The same is true of Keenan Harris from St. Louis, who's going to OV to Oklahoma June 6th through the 8th. But I think there's a healthy understanding that with those two guys in particular, you can't really count on landing them because there are big players involved that will have stronger pitches based on the geography and the potential NIL offerings to guys like that. So if you're looking at guys that could most realistically wind up in OU's class, Braxton Lindsey and Bo Jandro, in my mind, are the two guys that are right there at the top. Now, Lindsey was on campus last Tuesday. Caught a practice. Jandro and his brother Nico were on campus Saturday. They caught the scrimmage that took place over the weekend. Oklahoma, it would seem, is going to wind up in a heads-up battle with Washington for those two, at least as it stands right now, because there are only 3 Power 5 schools, Power 4 schools, I should say, that have offered both Bo Jandro and his brother Nico. It's OU, it's Washington, it's Arizona State. That Arizona State offer, I don't know if it's just residual from a former coach on staff or they just never really pushed or what, but Arizona State's not really in the picture. It's Oklahoma, Washington that are both on the schedule for official visits with both of those guys. Bo, on his own, is going to take OVs to several other schools, Oregon State, USC, I believe Oregon as well. But they're twins. Obviously, they want to play together if possible. The 2 P4 schools where they have that chance right now want them both and want them both badly, Oklahoma and Washington. Now, I will say, the Sooners are going to be in a really, really good spot long term with the Jandros. They haven't been to Washington yet. They're going up this week. They're going to OV there the weekend of May 30th through June 1st. But Oklahoma, not only do they get the last official visit, Grayson, at the Champion Barbecue, June 20th through 22nd, but the value system of that family aligns very nicely with OU's value system. They're very deeply rooted, faith-driven people, which is really a pretty congruent match for everything that Oklahoma is about under Brent Venable's guidance.
I guess I'm just going to give you all your shameless plugs for today.
Please do.
Because before we went on to the show, you know I like to be informed before I come on here and spew into this microphone for an hour. And I read your article on OU Insider. And that really stood out to them, was the faith-based method of coaching. How connected and how, by the way, I don't think anybody's brought this up. I think it is highly, highly impressive that they have assembled an entire staff, pretty much, of faith-based guys.
Yep.
Like, that is pretty wild of an accomplishment. So I got to give Oklahoma major, major props for that. But everything in that article, from the faith base to how the practices are run to how connected everything is, and I think I underestimated this part of bringing in all of these guys with linebacker backgrounds, the Wes Goodwins of the world, the Nate Drylings of the world, along with Brent Venables. They are very in tune with each other and what they want to do. And that stood out from the quotes from the Jandro twins, is that everybody, there's no stepping on toes, there's no undermining, there's no usurping. It is everybody knows their role, everybody knows what needs to get done, how we're going to get this work in. And I think when you have all of that in conjunction with a moral system that aligns with this family, I don't see, unless they screw something up maybe with the NIL, because I know NIL isn't the be-all, end-all for everybody, but you can't screw it up, though. I think the only way they don't land these twins is if they screw something up on that front, because it just seems like a perfect fit with the Jandros.
If you think about it, OU's done a really, really good job in recent years recruiting brothers.
Yeah.
They have 3 pairs of brothers on the roster right now. Peyton and Eli Bowen.
Bowen, Sawchucks.
Gavin and Gabe Sawchuk. And then Michael and Malik Hawkins. So, it's another thing you can set in front of them on the official visit. Hey, you guys aren't going to be the only ones living this experience if you come to Oklahoma. We got 3 other pairs of brothers that are doing the exact same thing here in the Crimson and Cream. Corey from Newcastle asked, doesn't Chavis have his master's from a seminary? I don't know. Probably. He was a youth pastor before he got into coaching. He was a youth pastor. So, yeah, I would imagine he has a seminary degree of some kind. But, yeah, Oklahoma, I mean, they and Clemson, right, are kind of the 2 most evangelically influenced programs in the nation, at least among secular, non-religiously affiliated institutions.
Right.
It's Oklahoma and it's Clemson. There was another text I wanted to get to. Yes, Joe from Tipton here asked, are there any in-state linebacker prospects on the radar currently? Well, Dejon Ackerson. Yep, Dejon Ackerson from Putnam City, who's actually going to be in Norman for a practice visit later this week. Him and Braden Presley both, actually.
Okay.
Braden Presley's coming down to Norman with the intention not only of seeing a practice, but scheduling his official visit with the Sooners. So that is a recruitment that, again, that's one that gets lost in the shuffle, I think, pretty easily because everybody is so hyper-focused, at least if we're talking about in-state guys, on Mason James and Taj Overton, and rightfully so. But Oklahoma's right there heavy in the mix for both Dejon Ackerson and Braden Presley. I'm not at the point where I feel like it's a slam dunk with either of those guys. Like they're automatically going to get Braden Presley and they're automatically going to get Dejon Ackerson just because they've offered and just because they're in the picture and, they can lean on the OU prestige. But I do think they've positioned themselves well. And after this week, there should be official visits on the books for both Ackerson and Braden Presley. So we look across the state right now. Obviously, Oklahoma has Jaden O'Neal committed. He's going to be the number one prospect in the state of Oklahoma once he's officially recategorized as an Oklahoma player as opposed to a California player. But look at the top guys in the state right now. The number 3 player in the state is Landon Anderson, who's committed to Kansas. You got Trey McLaughlin and Caden Jones at number 4 and 5 that are both committed to Oklahoma State. Colton Yarbrough's the number 6 player in the state right now. He's committed to Arkansas. The rest of the top 10 are still uncommitted. And Oklahoma's right there in the hunt for 4 of those guys. Taj Overton, Mason James, Dejon Ackerson, Braden Presley. And then we wait to see if our boy Daniel McMorris winds up flashing onto Oklahoma's radar, if he can maybe earn the offer at camp. That's probably what you're looking at with some of those fringe OU guys right now. And there are some legit fringe OU guys right now that I wouldn't be upset if Oklahoma made a legit push for one of these guys. Daniel McMorris, whom we've talked about, certainly in that category. Xavier Okufuolueze, certainly in that category. I think another guy that maybe hasn't been talked about quite as much is Kenny Golston down in Valiant. Wonder if he makes his way up to Oklahoma for a camp at some point.
What about Caden Penny?
So he's class of 2027.
We're only isolating this.
Yeah,
2026.
I was talking 2026. I should have clarified. John and Blanchard asked, Parker, OU looking at Titus Hawk from Choctaw at tight end? Yes, they are. They offered him just a couple weeks ago at the Future Freaks event. He was on campus for that. They offered him. They like him a lot. There are a lot of schools that like him a lot. Penn State offered him before Oklahoma did, which, Penn State doesn't offer scrubs at tight end. So, yeah, Titus Hawk, definitely a name to watch in the 2027 class at tight end. And John and Blanchard's other question was, we have a chance with Presley? Yeah, Oklahoma absolutely has a chance with Braden Presley. They're going up primarily against Texas Tech, Arkansas, and Kansas State.
Interesting that Oklahoma State isn't there. Obviously, his brother just finished playing there.
Yeah, and I guess I shouldn't dismiss Oklahoma State, especially now that they have his teammate Trey McLaughlin committed.
Right.
He doesn't have an official visit scheduled to Oklahoma State right now, which, honestly, he may be familiar enough with the whole run-of-the-mill in Stillwater that he doesn't need to take an official visit to have a pretty good sense of what he's dealing with up there. But there's been some buzz on Texas Tech from the Texas Tech side. I know that. Of course, they have another one of his teammates committed in Cord Nolan,
right?
The outstanding linebacker. Yeah, but he's going to OV Arkansas. He's going to OV Kansas State. And, again, he'll have an OV set to Oklahoma by the end of the week. Yardbird Richard said, thanks for the heads up on the weather. I looked into it and saw the threats could be very significant. Well, there you go. That's why you listen to Locked In. Not only do you get OU football insight, not only do you get OU recruiting coverage, but you also get scoops on the weather situation across the Sooner State. I don't actually have any scoops in that regard. I just regurgitate what the meteorologists say. But glad I could pass that along to you, Yardbird Richard. That is all for today here on Locked In. Parker Thune, Grayson, Singleton. We'll be back with you tomorrow, same time, same place. We'll kick off another edition of Locked In at 2 o'clock p.m. However, you should not go anywhere, because on the other side, the top of the 3 o'clock hour, Tyler McComas and Teddy Lehman will take it away for another 3 hours of OU sports talk on The Rush, and they, no doubt, will keep you weather aware as well. Thanks for tuning in today, folks. We'll see you again tomorrow at 2 o'clock right here on the Ref Sports Radio Network. Until then, take it easy.